At the end of March, I got to welcome back one of my favorite families to the studio. It feels like just yesterday I was photographing Iris as a newborn, and somehow she is already 6 months? Wow. Mom wanted something bright, colorful, and fruity for her milestone session, and when she picked my watermelon backdrop, I immediately said, okay, we have to do a watermelon cake. I've been wanting to do one for forever, since Iris hadn't tried many foods yet, which is super common at 6 months. We wanted to make sure everything was baby safe and simple. I ended up connecting with Kim from Krafted Eats here in Spokane, and she was amazing. We spent time talking through all the details, from the fruit decorations to the cake size and baby safety, and she absolutely nailed it. For this setup, I pulled together crates, baskets, greenery, flowers, citrus fruits, and I even got to use my tiny little radio flyer wagon for the first time. Fun fact, this backdrop was actually kind of tricky. The horizon line sits a little high, so I had to get creative with props to hide where the backdrop and the flooring met. Sometimes what looks effortless in the final images takes a surprising amount of problem solving behind the scenes. I also finally figured out a better way to keep my white wood floor nice and flat using tape, sandbags, and a carpet gripper. Those little improvements make editing so much easier later on. Now, Iris wasn't quite sitting independently yet, which is completely normal. Every baby develops on their own timeline. So before the session, I was already brainstorming ways to keep everything safe while still getting lots of variety. We started with photos of her and her big sister Priscilla together on a picnic blanket. Then I disguised a bumbo seat by wrapping it in textured white fabric so we could safely get some sitting portraits without taking away from the set. And let me tell you, Priscilla might be one of my favorite little assistants. She had ideas for everything. Every few minutes I'd hear, excuse me, followed by another suggestion. She was so polite and so chatty. Honestly, she made me laugh the entire session. She kept coming up with ideas we could try, and we actually did most of them. We photographed the girls on my little couch, and she even came up with what she called the rocket ship, where she held Iris on her tummy and gently swayed her side to side to make her smile. There was one point where I could tell Priscilla's smile was getting a little tired, so I told her to fake laugh instead, and that worked way better. Those ended up being some of my favorite sibling photos. Then it was finally time for the cake, the watermelon cake. Kim actually came to the studio and finished decorating it on site, which was so fun to watch. She absolutely nailed the vision. If you're paying close attention to the video, you'll actually notice something kind of funny. We bring the cake out for a few photos, then it disappears, and then it comes back later. That's actually something I do on purpose. I always like to photograph the cake before the baby gets into it. That way, I have beautiful images of all the little details while it's still perfect. It's also really nice to be able to send those finished photos to the baker or vendor who worked so hard on creating it. Then we set the cake aside and continue with the rest of the milestone portraits while baby is still happy, clean, and interested in exploring the set. Cake is almost always the messiest part of the session, so I like to save it for the end. If it gets messy or baby decides they're completely over having their picture taken, we've already captured all the portraits mom and dad wanted first. Once we brought the cake out, we quickly discovered that despite the watermelon theme, Iris wasn't all that interested in the watermelon. The strawberries though, those were definitely her favorite. And honestly, that's another thing I always tell parents before a cake smash or a milestone session with food. We can never predict how babies are going to react. Some dive right in, some carefully poke at it, some cry, and some are way more interested in fruit or the decorations or everything else on the set but the cake. Whatever happens, we just follow their lead and make it fun. Kelsey and I are already dreaming of Iris's 1-year session, and that is coming up sooner than you can believe. So keep an eye out for the next round of photos and behind the scenes videos.